If you garden for a living, I have some bad news for you. But if gardening is your hobby, this is some great news. Even though it's September, we still have some work to do in our gardens. Welcome back, casual gardeners. Today I'm going to go through a small list of garden tasks that I need to perform here in Zone 6, Utah. At the end of the video, I'm going to show you doing one of those tasks that will help bump up your yield for your tomatoes. As the days get shorter and the temperatures come down, there are a few tasks that you can do just whenever. You can plant perennials. It's a really great time to plant just about any perennial. It's also a really great time to transplant existing perennials and to thin perennial bulbs that are already in the ground. Do that while you're thinking about it, because maybe later on when it's a better time, the weather will be bad. Don't miss that opportunity. This is also a really important time to start easing down on the irrigation if you irrigate where you are. The days are getting shorter, the temperatures are getting cooler, there's less evaporation, you don't need to use as much water. That'll save you on your water bill, and it may actually help some of your plants thrive a little bit better. It's early September tasks, and let's see, this video is coming out next Monday. It's going to be a little bit late, but it still works. So one thing that's super important to me is that I prune my tomatoes to maximize yield before the first frost. In my zone, as of today, I've got a little over 40 days of for sure time before my tomato plants die. And it's not even for sure time. It gets a little dicey after 30 more days. But when the first frost comes, for sure, my tomato plants will die. I'd like to get as many red tomatoes, as many ripe tomatoes off these plants as possible before the frost hits. I do like making green tomato salsa. I do enjoy some fried green tomatoes, but there's some steps we can take to maximize ripe tomatoes. If you are going to use cover crops in your garden and you're going to be planting any overwintering cover crops, you want to get those in the ground right away. I've already done a video where I talk about planting my field peas that I've put in my garden. It's not an overwintering cover crop, so it went in sooner. One thing that I am going to be doing this month that sounds a little counterintuitive is I'm letting my field bindweed in my beds get a little longer. And that's because of something I'm going to start doing mid-month, so hold on, it'll make sense. Finally, if you're into your lawn, and I'm not going to do this, but if you love your lawn, if you like lawns generally, early September is a really great time to fertilize that lawn. Next up, we got our mid-month tasks. Mid to late September in most Zone 6 gardens is a great time to get that garlic in the ground. I'm very excited. I've got some nice fat juicy bulbs that I've saved from this year's harvest that I am super looking forward to getting into the ground. Mid to late September is also going to be a really great time to start planting your spring blooming bulbs. So I leave a little more leeway for the stuff you're transplanting, but the stuff you're planting new, middle of this month is a great time to start putting it in the ground. So those bindweeds that I'm letting grow a little longer right now, I will do a final application of glyphosate or Roundup on the bindweed. And that's important because no matter how you feel about herbicides, bindweed roots can go down like, it's ridiculous. You will never get out all of your bindweed roots, and they will come up no matter how deep you pull them from. So if you ever want to stop fighting your bindweed, you gotta poison them. And the end of the year, when the seasons are wrapping up, is the best time to do it. I'm going to do a specific video about this, and I'm going to show you a really great technique for treating bindweed in a planted bed so you don't kill its neighbors. I've just got one end of month task because I do like to get things done sooner rather than later so that bad weather or schedule issues don't mess me up. You do want to wait as long as you can before you start pulling up your tender bulbs, but September, preferably toward the end of September, is a great time to do that. If you're growing dahlias in Zone 6, for example, or buttercups, or most of family ranunculaceae. Those will need to come out of the ground in zone 6 unless you're growing in a greenhouse, because they will die. And now we can talk about specifically what I'm gonna do to these tomato plants. So as you can see, things have grown a little tall, and that's good news, especially since I got such a late start. All of my plants I'm going to top. This is a cherry tomato plant. I'm gonna cut it down to below where I have fruit. Okay, and then I'm gonna go in and make sure I get all the suckers out that are not already bearing fruit. With your cherry tomatoes, you can be confident that anything that's already started will finish within the next 30 days. You don't have to pull off anything that's in progress but too young, but you do want to pull off anything that's not in progress. Now with your larger tomatoes, especially the heirloom varieties, like this is an ox heart tomato type called a Hungarian heart that I got from Baker Creek Heirloom Seeds. These will typically grow to at least a pound, and I've almost gotten to 3 pounds on these. So they take forever to ripen. If you've got anything smaller than these guys, I don't know, is that in the frame? I hope so. If you got anything smaller than this, just lop it off. It's not going to finish in time. Now these little guys in the cages, they are a semi-determinate or semi-indeterminate variety called Raspberry Liana. And I'm not going to do anything to these because my experience is that they ripen pretty darn quick. These were my first tomatoes to give me ripe fruit this year, and they'll probably be my last ones I pull ripe fruit off of at the end of the year. So these I don't have to do anything to. If you have determinate tomatoes, probably you're picking them all right now. Semi-indeterminates or semi-determinates like these ones, and I don't know which one's more correct, they're in between, you can be a little less careful with. So these I'm not going to touch. But the rest of my tomato plants I am going to cut back hard, because most of the fruit that is not, none of the fruit that's not already in progress is going to be ripe by the time I need it. And in some cases, some of the fruit that is in progress isn't going to finish in time. While we're on the subject of tomatoes, you probably noticed that a lot of my leaves on my plants are curling. This is not necessarily from disease this time of year. This could be temperature stress. Where I live, the temperatures are dropping to and sometimes below 50 degrees Fahrenheit at night. It's just going to get colder at night. That's one reason why I am cutting everything back so hard and really pushing to get that ripening to finish. Because in my climate, even when the days are beautiful, the nights are getting pretty cold. I'm not going to stress if they get sick now, because it won't kill them before the frost does. So this is a time for us to literally and figuratively just kind of chill. While we're on the subject of tomatoes, I can pick this tomato before it's fully ripe, and I will enjoy vine ripened flavor. And that is because of a point in tomato growth called breaker stage. This is another short I've already done. This one right here is right at breaker stage. You see, it's still got some green on it, but it's also got a lot of red that's kind of spread over the tomato. This will turn all the way red and have all the same flavor it would have had if I'd left it on the vine until it was fully red, because it's past breaker stage. So go ahead and pick these now as the skin of your tomato gets harder during the ripening process. If you get a sudden influx of water, it's gonna crack right open, and you're gonna have to cut around that, and it's not gonna be as much tomato for you. You don't want that. If you're still watching, you probably liked this video. Please go ahead and like the video if you liked it. If you're not subscribed to my channel, take care of that, especially if you want to see that video I'm going to do in the future about how to deal with field bindweed in a planted bed. I think it's a really great technique. I didn't invent it. I got it from Utah State University Extension Services. Big shout out to them. Check out the extension website if this is your planting area, because it is a free and amazing public resource. That's what I got for you in this video. Thank you so much for joining me here in my garden, and I hope you have a wonderful time in your own.